Hello everyone, my name is Adiola Kolawole of ALOS NG. So we're going to continue on our April Law series. For this session, we're going to focus on the rights of the tenant and the landlord. So first of all, the tenant's rights. The tenant's entitlement to quiet and peaceable enjoyment of the premises, has has some rights. And number one is the fact that it has the right to privacy. It has the right to freedom from unreasonable disturbance. It also has exclusive, it should have exclusive possession of the premises. Of course, if the landlords want to come and inspect, it has subject to the landlord's restricted right of inspection. That's bound to happen. But aside from that, it should be exclusive possession for the tenant. Also, there's also the is allowed to use the areas for reasonable and lawful purpose. There should not be any restriction to that as well. And another important thing about the tenant is the fact that there's certain situation where you have some repairs, you want to effect some improvement on the premises, and you ask for the consent of the landlord in writing, and he has agreed, and you effected such improvement, and but eventually it happens that the relationship ended. That means the tenancy relationship ended. You as a tenant, you are entitled to claim compensation for the effected improvements, after the premises has elapsed. And so, if the landlord determines, that means that it ends the tenancy, and you got the consent of the landlord before making such improvements, you are entitled to a compensation. Of course, another thing to note is the fact that you as a tenant, of course, general rules, you're supposed to pay your rent, to keep the premises in good shape, like to make sure that it is neat and all that. The most important thing is that you as a tenant must not sublet. That's one of the duties. Do not, I call it something that you must not do. You're not allowed to sublet you're not allowed to even sublet any part of the premises without the written consent of the landlord. You're not allowed to make any alteration whatsoever without the written consent of the landlord. Also, because it is normal that the landlord comes in to inspect, you have to ensure that you allow the landlord into access to check in some things in the premises. But of course, the landlord would have given you some notice before coming. Also, you're supposed to notify the landlord where there's structural or substantial damage that's occurred in any part of the premises as soon as practicable. As well, you ensure that you pay the rates, because as a tenant you need to pay your electricity bill, you need to pay for the waste disposal bills. Those are things that you are expected to do. Those are part of the duties as well. So for the landlord, we're going to move to the landlord now. The landlord is expected not to. Don't disturb the tenant's quiet and peaceable enjoyment of the premises. You're expected to pay all the rates stipulated by law. For example, the land use charge. It's the landlord that is required to pay the land use charge, not the tenant. You're also supposed to keep the premises insured against damage. You're also you're not to terminate or restrict the use of a common facility or service for the use of the premises. The common facility, example is the use of the parking space. It's a common facility. The use of the running water. So you're not supposed to restrict the common facility. You're supposed to also effect repairs and maintain the external and common part of the premises. You're supposed to pay. So, for example, soccer away. But I need to go back to this to note. I said that in my previous video that some provisions in the law are still subject to, if it's contrary to the tenancy agreement. And so some, so it's important. These are just provided for just in case the tenancy relationship does not have a tenancy agreement. So if there is a tenancy agreement and these rights, duties have been stated in there, that supersedes the things that I'm stating here. So it's just peradventure that, you just enter into a relationship, you are paying the person yearly, and for like 4 years you've been paying yearly. Of course, the law sees you as a yearly tenant automatically. And so when it's time to be evicted, when it's time to to know, okay, what are your rights and your duties, it falls there, automatically under this law. But everything I'm still saying is still, if it's contrary to the tenancy agreement. So it's important, that is still an important emphasis I must make, in dealing with this tenant and landlord relationship. It's because the provision goes a long way to affecting whatever happens during the course or even after the relationship. Then finally, I'm going to talk about the business premises. And so the law also protects those that rent a space or rent premises for business purposes, for commercial purposes. And so the law provides that you are entitled to a compensation if certain things go wrong. We've said it, like for example, the landlord takes an action that may alter or affect the flow of your client, or the landlord blocks your access into your premises, or the landlord fails to repair certain things that are broken, that maybe an equipment or a plant in your premises as a business person, or there's some common part of the building that needs to be affected and the landlord is not doing anything about it in your business premises, and it's affecting or it has affected your input as a business person. The law provides that the law provides that landlord is liable to pay the tenant compensation using position as an determined at the court. So you can decide to go to court to get your compensation in that regard. So that's just a particular provision provided for those that are into business premises. Then finally, on this session of the tenants, is the fact that I mentioned earlier in the previous video that when it comes to security, caution fees or service charges in some residents, where I know service charges usually cover security, it covers maybe cleaning of the external areas. So all of these things, the law entitles, the law provides rather, that the landlord or his agent should give you an account of how this money has, this money is being dispersed, is being distributed, or every 6 months. So you are entitled to such account. So the landlord or the agent just says pay 60,000 per year for service charge, or pay this per year for this, and you shouldn't keep quiet. You should ask every 6 months that, how has this been going? Has this been, how much do you pay the cleaner? Or you should be able to ask for the account of how these things, how the money has been, how the money is being spent. That's one of your what you are entitled to. All right, thank you.